Good morning, everybody. I'm hoping that this has worked. Technology is not my strong point, so please say, yeah, unfortunately not. Please say hi so that we know that you're watching. And if you happen to be watching this as a replay, also say hello. Any questions at any point, put them in the chat and we'll get back to you. And again, replay as well. Don't think that if you're watching it at a later date that you can't ask questions. So please come back to either of us with any questions that you've got. So for those that don't know me, I'm Amanda from the Holistic Equestrian, and I have realised this morning that I haven't had a guest speaker for about 18 months. So November 2020 was the last time I had a guest speaker, and that was with you, Susan. I didn't realise. Yeah, 18 months ago, and we spoke about hormones and acupoints and things that can help with hormonal issues. So again, there's a blog there that can be found on the website, and the video can also be accessed from there as well. So this morning, hi Stephanie, and we've got so Facebook users. So I'm using StreamYard, and it doesn't always give us the names of who's making a comment. So if you just pop your when you say hello, then that will just help us know who it is. So Susan's here today. Oh,
you froze.
Susan, are you there?
I am.
You seem to have frozen.
Oh no.
Oh, let's see if she comes back. Are you there? You froze a second.
You froze for a while too, so.
Okay, so Susan is here today from Elemental Acupressure. And I am a very honoured student. I'm doing the certification with Susan, and we're doing the intro to the 5 elements at the minute. And we thought that it would be a really good opportunity to also share the information in a bit more of a briefer format with you guys, but then just to give you some really good juicy information that you can get your teeth into, learn a bit, get your brain thinking a little bit, and then we're going to point you in the right direction if you'd like some further information and those kind of things, and we can do that at the end. So I'm going to hand over to Susan to do her introductions and let us know what we're going to be doing this morning.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much, Amanda. It is always a pleasure. You're getting me in to talk about my favorite thing in the entire world. So it's so easy to get excited. And what I'm going to be talking about today is acupressure a little bit, but mostly I'm going to be talking about the 5 elements, and we'll kind of introduce you to all of that. But the big thing I do want to say is, first of all, you guys are really, really lucky to have Amanda there. She posts just amazing stuff in her group. It's just a delight. And she has recently joined our program, and it's amazing. Her insight is pretty special. So you guys are just really hooked up with a really special community of people that have the right way to look at horses, right? Just that way that's kind of open and accepting and really wanting to connect. And this is the kind of horse lover that is perfect for taking a look at the 5 elements. This kind of information can be kind of mind-blowing for people who haven't taken that kind of approach to their horses yet, right? But if you've already made that step into this whole world, 5 elements are just going to blow your mind in the best of ways. You're ready for it. As Amanda said, I love questions, so I can see the comments at this point, but I'm going to be switching over to slides for my screen. So I won't be able to watch the comments. So I'm hoping that Amanda will let me know if there are things. The reason I have to use slides, let me explain. The reason I have to use slides is that I get excited. And this is one of my favorite topics. So what happens is that I end up kind of getting off track. And this will kind of help me stay on target. Oh my goodness. So where is that? Are we here? Yes, we are. We must be. There it is. Okay. I should have experimented with this a little bit before. Okay. Instead, I'm realizing what I have to do is actually open another browser to get those notes. If I don't do it, it's not going to be pretty. So thank you for my tech moment here. It won't take long, I hope. In the meantime, why don't you come in and let me know if anybody there has ever taken a look yet at either acupressure or any kind of body work like shiatsu, gua sha, any kind of East Asian medicine. So that obviously sometimes is called Chinese medicine, but a lot of what I've also done is kind of dive in also to the Japanese end of things with shiatsu. So just let me know if you have any of this in your background. It changes how I present when I know what people are up to. So, all right, there we go. There's the slides that I definitely want to have access to. That should do it well. Okay, thank you for your patience on that. All right, so the big thing that I want to do today is to talk about a little aspect of the rich tradition of East Asian medicine. And this comes from classical times. It's actually a theory that is over 2,000 years old, which is kind of mind-blowing that we're still using it and still finding it to be incredibly useful, practical, and very modern in some ways. And the reason that it's so helpful is it gives us insight. So some of the techniques, like Stephanie, and I've got it set up now that I can see your comments, which is really cool. But Stephanie, for example, is saying, I've tried acupressure on my gelding. And Pamela is saying that she's played with the red light and she uses the Masterson method. So these are two kind of camps that with a lot more overlap than difference, that are people that have played with using simple touch to make a difference in their horse's health. Or maybe you've worked with dogs or cats or people or whatever. And Simone says, yes, acupressure, pranic healing, and other non-specific energy work. And so what I want to say is that this 5-element theory is a way to kind of unify a lot of different energetic aspects. And we'll even talk quickly about what even this energy stuff is, although I have a feeling a lot of you already kind of know what it is and how to use it, at least a little bit. But all of this is to give you insight into these ground level, kind of very core level archetypes that we see in all living beings. So whereas I'm going to focus on talking about horses, because this is a horse group, the truth is it works for people, it works for cats, it works for giraffes. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can talk about any kind of animal that you want. These are energies or energetic patterns that exist everywhere throughout nature. And I think part of the power of these archetypes is how pervasive they are and how much insight and how much insight they give us. Yeah, so we have a lot of people trying all sorts of different stuff. Acupressure is the most common, but really anytime you are using kind of trigger points, touch for health, shiatsu, any of these other things are also tapping into this. And Masterson method, I mean, when Masterson teaches, he doesn't really call what he does acupressure, but he's doing acupressure. I mean, he really is definitely drawing from that legacy, even if he's made some beautiful innovations in his own way. I mean, just beautiful work that he shares with the world. We're really, really lucky to have his work kind of spreading out as well as it has. But let's dive into these 5 elements because they are going to allow you to get some insight about your animals. Because I think for a lot of us, when we're going through our day-to-day life, we just take our animals for who they are. We don't necessarily sit back and kind of think on a philosophical level about why are they the way they are. unless you're having troubles. Like if you're really struggling and you're having problems, then you start to go into problem solving mode and you're looking at that. But if everything's going well and everybody's happy and your animal is thriving, you may not stop and really think, why is your animal like she is, or he, or it, however you want to, whatever gender you might be dealing with. Like, why does your cat attack when she feels vulnerable, when your best friend's cat just quivers in fear? So one's really coming out in response where some would kind of retreat. So it's a different response. Why does your dog get red, itchy skin in the spring while the dog next door gets autumn skin issues? Why does your horse grow poor quality hoof while the animal in the next paddock has no problem at all? Same footing, same arena that you're riding on, fill in all those blanks, same nutrition, same age, same breed, whatever, but totally different responses. So what's going on there? What creates that difference? Why does your current animal learn quickly when your last animal really needed multiple sessions to learn the same skill? And if you've never really thought about that, you might, they're just individuals. It's more than that. There are patterns. So is it diet? Is it genes? Is it luck? Is it, how they've been trained? Or is there a deeper reason why your animal is unique? Why does she have that unique temperament or health issue or learning style? And what if there was a pattern that you could recognize in that unique character that would give you solutions and ways of not only identifying certain patterns, but knowing how to then manage those patterns as well? Now, classical East Asian medicine has an answer. And I'm not saying it's the answer, right? I'm not saying that this is the only way that you can go. I am not one of those gals. But I will say it's a powerful, rich, and very profoundly accurate way of giving you some solutions. It is based on centuries of acute observation and patient practice. So classical East Asian medicine holds that there are repeatable, recognizable patterns. These are perennial patterns that exist in the natural world. And when you understand and identify those patterns, you can better understand and identify what's going on around you. And you can better align yourself with those patterns to create optimal health. Now, we don't only want optimal health for our animals. We also want to see them maybe perform in certain ways. Maybe you just have horses out in the back pasture. Great. Or maybe you have some big goals for what you're doing with your horses. And in order to reach that goal and to kind of move along in your goals, you need to have really as much health and wellness in that body as possible. So again, every little piece that you get that gives you better insight, that's going to be a good thing. Now, classical Chinese medicine for animals really does work for humans. And a lot of the theories that we are drawing from today were the reason that they're there. The reason that there's such a rich history of all of these theories is that they have been used throughout the Orient for humans for centuries, as in many centuries. A lot of these theories were actually kind of coming up about 200 to 300 years before the Common Era. And they have continued to go kind of rising and falling in their popularity and their sophistication and all of that right up until the modern day. So that's a long time to develop a certain way of seeing the world, a certain way of seeing health and wellness. And because of that legacy, because we've had millions, quite literally millions of practitioners trying their hand at this, it's given us just a tremendous background to draw from. This classical Chinese medicine or classical East Asian medicine includes acupuncture, acupressure, herbal medicine, moxa, where you're kind of burning this, it looks kind of like a big cigar over your horse, to bring heat and healing into regions of the body. All of these things have been used for centuries, for livestock, for working animals, as well as, you know, family pets. Modern veterinary medicine has blended with the insight that we get from these classical theories into this beautiful modern mix that has the best of all the old stuff and the best of all the new stuff. And it makes something, this hybrid, that is quite powerful for us to bring to our animals. So this 5-element theory for animals is an ancient theory, but it's definitely been kind of modernized or kind of brought together into the modern world for modern animals, because we have slightly different problems with our horses and with our own bodies than we might have had 2,000 years ago. But I think we can also recognize that there's certain things that don't change. You're still going to get hoof problems. You're still going to get coat problems. You're still going to have colic problems. And these things are perennial. The 5 elements can give us insight into that perennial stuff as well as the newer stuff. So the 5 elements are going to give you a window into your individual animal's unique pattern, so you can develop a customized lifestyle for optimum health. Because, you know, we all love our animals. We know that they are special and unique and wonderful, and we love and adore them just as we would a best friend or a partner or a child. And we know that kind of having one answer for everybody, that doesn't make any sense. We're all unique individuals, and our animals no different, of course. And so by having an ability to customize our approach through training, through feeding, through exercise, through wellness, through, you know, what, you know, kind of health issues that animal may have, allows us to really customize that care and come in with special ideas that will be exactly what that animal needs in this moment, which is pretty powerful. Now, before I get into any more of that, I should tell you briefly who I am and why you should even, you know, listen to me. My name is Susan Tenney, and I am from Elemental Acupressure, and I've been doing this incredible work that I am so grateful for being a part of for over 30 years, which is kind of a long time to do something. What I love about it is that, I mean, mind blown, I am still learning, and sometimes in some ways feel like a beginner. It's so rich. There's always something more to learn. There are academic aspects. You can learn the theory and these complicated, sophisticated ways of going, as well as all the energy part that some of you have already played with. That's so exciting to feel and experience and share with our horses. I have been teaching this work and practicing this work both in the US where I live. I'm currently in Seattle now, but I've practiced in other parts around the country as well. And I've also lived and worked in Europe. So I really have taught pretty wide range of people in that time, worked with tons of horses on all different levels, from Olympic athletes to backyard rescues. And the thing that's the most exciting, I think, about this is it works for everybody, right? There is no animal that we can't get better insight about. There is no animal that we can't help at least a little bit to understand what they need in a customized way, which is, for me, really, really exciting, because one of my biggest mottos for all that we do with the horses and the dogs and all the other that we help, is I want you all to be able to step into the circle of care. You're not in a group like this because you want somebody to do it all for you. That's not your goal. I'm pretty sure about it. You want to educate yourself. You want to find new things. You're curious, and you want to help your animals thrive. And the way that we do that, of course, is to dive in and learn new things and to try new things. So like those of you that have tried to do acupressure on horses already, you know, like you can do this and get results. And that's the exciting thing. I definitely believe in our own scope of practice. I always want people to make sure that any medical thing they're dealing with, anytime you're dealing with a really thorny, you know, training issue or whatever, you want to make sure, of course, that you're consulting your veterinarian. I'm not saying that this is a replacement for proper medical care. I think that should be clear. But having said that, I think there is a place for all of you, every single one of you, to step into that circle of care and be part of that care team. And part of the way that you can do that by using the 5 elements is allowing that to give you better insight so you can observe, hey, that pattern that I know, that's not doing so well right now. I know what to look for. I know when my horse is struggling, so I can actually get help faster. So whereas some people think that what we're doing might, you know, try to supplant veterinary science, I say no. I say most of our students actually now call the vet faster because they're better observers. They're more involved in caring for their animals. Now, Stephanie's saying, hey, Susan, do you travel up to the Olympic Peninsula by chance? And you know, I haven't. We have lived in Seattle now for like 10 years, and I never leave. We're trying to do something about that. I'm so busy putting together all these fun programs and doing all these things that we don't get out much, especially during COVID. But hopefully that will change because it is an extraordinarily beautiful part of the world. Yes, yes. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about these 5 elements and see, you know, what they might give us insight into. So the 5 elements are very good at giving you insight into an animal's temperament, into their character, into what makes them tick. And so it was very good at helping you see what your animal's strengths are, what they really excel at, and how to build upon your animal's natural strengths. We'll also get some insight into your animal's downfalls, into their kind of Achilles heels, how to manage those weaknesses. And of course, we all have weaknesses. It's not that like one of the elements types is like better than the others. No. We just want to understand what the strengths and weaknesses are so that we can really let those strengths kind of flourish and really express themselves, while those weaknesses get shored up so that they don't kind of hinder you, or rather your animal, from having, you know, good health and optimum like performance and learning and all that good stuff. We can also take a look at your animal's relationship style and how that would influence herd dynamics, all of their kind of social interactions that they have with other equines with canines, of course, also with us humans. And you'll see that these 5 elements give us real insight in how to connect best with these animals, what motivates them, what they're looking for in relationship. It's different. They all have different kind of ways of going at it. And we'll also see that it definitely gives us insight into your animal's learning style. And just think about what a gift that is. If you understand how your horse learns, it can totally change how you approach your training, your progress, and whether that's just, you know, wanting to do fun stuff on the ground or whether you want to go for some high level performance, doesn't matter. Training is training. And learning is learning. And when you have a better insight about how an animal learns, you can be more effective and have more fun and waste way less time because you're just going straight for strategies that really work. So now that we kind of can see what the 5 elements can teach us and that it teaches us those wellness strengths, it gives us insight into vulnerabilities and what to do about it. Let's see kind of what they are and kind of where it all comes from. Now, the 5 elements are actually these energetic patterns that live in the natural world. And I think the best way to give you insight into how these different natural patterns were identified is to realize that we see these distinct patterns in the natural world already. Because if you think about the seasons, spring and fall, they feel different. You know what comes in spring, even though, of course, if you're down under, you're going to have it happening at a 6-month different time than we are. We're having spring, and all the flowers are going nuts, and the blossoms here are just absolutely going to town, and it has an entirely different feeling than what Amanda's going to be having going on right now as she's kind of easing in toward wintertime in Australia. We know that it makes our body feel different. It makes our head feel different. The light is different. And those different energies, natural energies, are just part of our everyday. Well, we don't think about it, they just are part of us. Well, these same patterns exist in 5 elements. And so what we see is that there are these 5 kind of archetypes that are all in every single animal, every single one. So what we're going to be talking about today is these different types, in the sense that, we might be talking about the wood type or the fire type horse. And it's really easy to think that that's all they are. They only have this one type, but it's just not like that. Let me pull out my handy dandy and turn my heat off here. What we want to look at, can you see that? You can see that. So what we have is these 5 patterns, and this is just a way that we graphically kind of show it to the world. It's a way, kind of a snapshot for our minds. We have the wood and the fire and the earth and the metal and the water. And these are these 5 types that we have. But what I want you to understand is that we have all 5 of them, in the sense that it's all in the circle. And I think you can understand this in the sense that, like, if you think of your organs, for example, you have a heart, you have the lungs, you have, your liver, you have all these different organs in your body, these different and they all have their own functions, and they all work together, hopefully as well as possible, to create optimum health. Well, it's the same thing with the elements. So all of these elements are energetic patterns that are in your body, in your horse's body, in your dog and cat's body, going to they're all working together to create that dynamic being that you or that animal is. And when all of these are going well, it's a dynamic equilibrium. So it's not static. It's not one way and it stays that way for the rest of its life. It's always changing. It's cyclical, just like the cycles of nature. The seasons are cyclical. Same thing. So what we see, though, is that with these 5 elements, water, fire, earth, metal, and water, it's a little bit different than the 4 elements. If you've looked at more of the Western way of looking maybe at herbs or astrology, and you see those 4 elements, the system is similar, but there's places where it just doesn't kind of go together. The 5 elements really are their own thing. And so what we'll see is that your horse, yourself, your partner is going to be primarily 1 or 2 elements in their type. That's the element that expresses itself the most. And as I take you through, I'm going to show you what those different expressions might look like in a horse, so that you can say, oh yes, I know a horse of that type. They have that behavior, they have that learning style, they have those physical symptoms as well. But the big thing that I really want to underline, and I'll go over this again, is that just because you have one that's prominent, one that kind of stands in the front of all the others and kind of hogs the spotlight for that animal's temperament and physicality, they always have all of them. So if you get confused, you say, I see a little bit of all of them in my horse. That's correct. You're actually seeing correctly. It's not that you're confused or not getting something. You're understanding correctly that there is a matrix of these 5 elements all together in your animal. That's the way it's supposed to be. And when you can identify those different aspects of the matrix, you can understand how it all comes together. Now, if you're going to dive into it and do like Amanda and study it for a couple years and really get to the nitty gritty, there's an incredible level of detail and sophistication involved. You can study tons and tons of points and all of that. We're just going to do a first pass through it. And so the idea is not to try to grab onto every detail. It's just to like, let it just wash over you so that as we talk our way through it, you can get that kind of snapshot. We're just looking for the snapshot, the overview, and know that if you want to learn more, there is a ton more to learn, but it's good just to get that first taste of all of it. Now, with each of these elements here, they have their own category. So we have this chart. This is called the correspondences, and you can see this. You can go on books. You can go on, you know, you can just look up the 5 element correspondences on Google, and you'll see that they have organs and they have qualities and they have body tissues and symptoms and behaviors and all these associations that we call correspondences that are associated with each of these elements. And that helps us kind of identify and kind of separate out each of the elements. So for example, there are inner organs like your liver, your spleen, your heart, and they will correspond to the different elements. You don't need to do that. We're just going to give you that first taste, and you'll see that mostly in the behavior and the symptoms, but just know that all of these categories exist for each of the organs. There's seasons of year that are associated with the 5 elements. Sensory organs like your, hearing and your ears, as well as your eyes and sight, etc. And even parts of the body are associated with the different elements. So there's so much that can be done, but we're just going to look briefly at the 5 archetypes and some of the common ways that they manifest or show themselves to us. That's going to give us that first thing. So again, our goal today is just to have that first glance and to understand that although as you're hearing the stories of these different 5 elements, really understand that your horse has all 5 inside. But we're just looking like, which one sounds the most like your horse? Which one sounds the most like you? That kind of stuff. And, we'll just kind of let that flow over. It's kind of like a waterfall kind of flowing over you, and just kind of pick up that little piece of where we're going. All right. So if I can see those comments, so if anyone has questions yet, feel free to put them in there. I'm happy to take a little pause and answer questions. But let's talk about the first element. So the first element is the wood element, and we call this the dynamo, because these are the powerhouse horses in the horse world. They are driven and they are dynamic and they are bold. They tend to be extroverted. They tend to be powerful, at least when they're younger and strong and well, and they tend to be quite athletic and kind of sport oriented. Now, it doesn't mean that they have to compete. It definitely doesn't mean that you have to, ride them in competition, something like that. But it means that they have a lot of body energy, a lot of presence that they bring to the world, and they like to express that in the world. They are motivated by movement and action. It feels good to them to move their bodies and to feel the power that they have quite naturally. And they are also often quite interested in hierarchy. And by that, I don't mean like dominance and any of that kind of nonsense. What I'm talking about is these are animals who are natural leaders in the world. So whether you're talking about their herd or whether you're talking about how they interact with their human, these are animals who are so naturally gifted with leadership capabilities. They kind of have this feeling that they should be in charge, or if they're in the presence of someone who has even more kind of leadership energy, They want to make sure that that person is living up to their duty to lead in a good way, because otherwise they should take over. And again, it's not this thing of like, you know, we hear these dominance theories and dog training and stuff like, it's not like that at all. And it's not about this alpha, it's not that. But it is that sense of some people and some animals are just natural leaders. And so they are ready to step into place and be that leader if someone else is not taking up that role, because it's safer to have a situation where someone's kind of watching and making sure that everybody's safe. Now, the wood strengths are that kind of competitive drive. It can be very playful. They can be fearless. These can be horses, for example, that would be a great horse for like 3-day eventing, where they just are fearlessly going toward big, heavy jumps, and, you know, train that animal properly, get them into the right place to do that. You know, obviously it's all within balance, but they have that boldness that some people really like to work with. And that may not be you. You know, you may say, oh, I much prefer to just kind of go on a lazy trail ride and just hang out with my horse. Great, that's wonderful. But these are probably not the horse you're drawn to, because this is a horse that wants to go fast if they can. They want to play, they want to do. And so they just have a different way of playing than someone who wants to just be kind of quiet and just kind of hanging out and easy chill. They're not easy chill. That's not their goal. The challenges with these animals is because they have this and they have that leadership ability. The challenges with being with these animals is they can be impatient, they can be demanding, they can constantly test your hierarchy. Even though they trust you as a leader, even though they're fine to have you, you know, lead them in, they want to be a part of the decision making for sure. That's a healthy, natural thing, but they may also just want to take over. And that's just part of their natural instinct. And it's not to do it over you so much as they want to see that both of you are safe and healthy and happy and going for something that is dynamic and fun. These are not horses that are necessarily great for a beginner rider or a beginner animal caretaker, because of this drive, because of this ambition, and because of this strong character that tends to do better with someone who is clear, present, and skilled with kind of handling an animal. I mean, you can think of like a big, you know, like a racehorse or a sport horse or something like that, that has this presence, that has this athletic ability, that likes to express that in the world. They may not be the easiest to handle for a beginner handler, but they are the perfect match for someone who also has these goals, who loves the sport, who loves the competition, who loves to, you know, push and go and do, and it doesn't have to be competition. It could be, you know, going on endurance rides that you do not to be the best, but just because you love doing it, you know. So it doesn't have to be a competition, but they do really like to keep moving together. They like to work with you, but they really want you to be present. This is the big thing you want to take away from the wood person and the wood horse, is that they will demand you to be present. Because if you're like, thinking about the grocery list, they know. And they're like, hey, back to work here. Get here. Like, we have stuff to do. And if you're not going to lead, then I'm going to take over. Again, not because I'm a jerk, but because it's safer that way. They really do well with consistent boundaries and practices. That doesn't, of course, mean that you're harsh. You're not to be a tyrant, but just to say, like, this is my physical boundary here. And if you're, you know, if you set consistent boundaries, they actually will respect you more for it. They actually love to kind of test you to see, are you worthy of their respect? And we see that actually brings out the best in them, surprisingly. Now, these animals will have specific vulnerabilities within their health. You may see, for example, that these are horses that have tendon and ligament injuries. This is a really common issue for these animals. They may also have issues within their hooves if they're horses, or claws if they are small animals. And they very often have issues with their eyes or eyesight, and especially during springtime, because springtime is the season of the wood element. So that dynamo may end up having some of these symptoms, some of these things get a little more challenged during springtime. They may also have issues with allergies. And one of the other things that we definitely see is they tend to carry a lot of body tension. Now, for an athlete, that's great. You want a certain level of muscle tension, muscle tonus as part of being strong and healthy and athletic, but you don't want so much that you can't move properly. And so a lot of times that'll be tied in with those tendon injuries, unfortunately. So if you wanted kind of an archetype for your wood animal, you might think of a racehorse who is, there in the box, right, ready to go onto the track. And, that explosive power they have when the gate flies open and whoom, and say what you will about the racing industry. I'm not a fan, obviously, but it's pretty astounding to see a horse do that, to move like that, to have that explosive power, and to have that total joy of experiencing movement in their powerful young body. And this is that energy that we see with the dynamo. But when it's not so balanced, again, you're going to have more tendon injuries, you're going to have more muscle tension. And that's where you can really do beautiful, beautiful things with acupressure, with massage. I'm sure you can imagine how massage would help with that muscle tension, as well as stretching. Learning proper stretches are just a game changer for the dynamo. You can stay ahead of those tendon injuries, for example. And remember, these animals make terrible patients. They are not patient by nature, so you do not want a tendon layup. You don't. Because putting them in a box, or wherever you are going to put them when they're having that tendon injury in rehab, it's just not pretty. So if you can stay ahead of that, you can really skip that whole bit, and it's really, really go. All right. So one of the big ways to support their wellness is just to keep them moving. So for example, if you're going to think about doing a training session, which is something they're probably going to enjoy, they're probably going to enjoy your jumping or your running around, whatever you're going to do together. But make sure that you are doing a proper warm-up. These are horses that can hold that muscle tension, and it's often said that really to get all the full circulatory effect within the body takes anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, and they may want to take off down the path there, but if you start slowly, or at least kind of keep things not full out, that can be a really good idea. Also realize that these are not the horses that you want to do some big, long, lengthy grooming session before you go. No way. Make sure that, you keep it short. If you want to do something where they have to stand still for a long time, do that at the end of the day when they have had their chance to kind of get the buck out. They're going to do much better. So somebody is saying that sounds so much like Mark and Frosty. So yeah, I want to hear when you find that one that sounds like your animal, let me know, because I love having those light bulbs come on. And again, there are going to be acupressure points that are specifically for each of these. But again, it's kind of like we can't do everything in this short presentation. So just know that that's out there as you're looking for ways to work with this. It's not only the training techniques and all of this. You can also know that there are acupressure that's specifically for each and every type. Okay, so the next one is the shining star. So we started out with our wood element there. And we're now coming up to the fire element. So it's kind of like going from spring to summer. And the fire element is still very extroverted and full of energy, and kind of still loves to play and move and go, but it has a different quality to it. So whereas the other one's kind of like your Olympic athlete, the shining star is more the diva, more the rock star. They are showy and glowy and love all of the attention. They are charismatic. They're flashy. They tend to be a little more high strung. They can be very loving. They're very heart-centered a lot of the time, but they can also be sensitive. They can be really high drama, and they can be a lot to work with. So if you wanted to kind of think again, if you want to kind of get these stereotypes in your head, just to have something to kind of hang the types on. Whereas for a horse, I would say that the wood kind of the most kind of obvious archetype, stereotype would be the thoroughbred for the wood. We're now looking at the Arab horse with the flippy mane and the tail in the air and kind of prancing away with this gorgeous dishy face, right? So it is still high energy, still extroverted, but a very different quality to it. These horses are not so motivated by going and doing and that bold movement and power, just like the seedling in spring that pushes its way through the earth. It's now summertime, and it's like the plant is just reaching up to that warm summer sky and just expanding and expressing itself into the world. So these are animals who instead are motivated by connection. So instead of being motivated by movement, they're motivated by connection. So I've done a lot of work with endurance horses in my time, and I saw tons of these Arabs, and those Arabs were like, they would do anything for their person, anything. And so if the person says, let's go ride 100 miles, 160 kilometers, like, yeah, sure, great. If we're doing it together, I'm all in. Sounds like fun. And so again, it's not so much, it's a different motivation, like a different drive that they have, and that is through connection. They're also very high motivated for play and fun and action with playmates. They're high spirited, and they're just really lovely, just really, really lovely on that level. Now, again, that's some of their strengths, that high energy, the fun, the playful, the heart-centered, but they have a dark side too, as each and every one of the types does. The shining star is high strung. They can be a bit of a drama queen. They're easily overwhelmed by their emotions, and they can get overstimulated a lot faster than some of the others. That can lead them to be distracted, ungrounded, unclear, and just kind of either frantic or anxious. So you don't really get that anxiety in the same way in the wood type. But here you do. You'll see separation anxiety, because again, they are motivated by connection. You will also see that they need a lot of attention. And one of the best ways to stay ahead of problems for these animals is to make sure they don't get overstimulated. So you might think, let's say you're taking your horse to a show and you're on the show grounds, but there's all these other horses, all this other stimuli, and they just can kind of go tilt, even if they're enjoying themselves. And the best thing you can do is to pull back, let them breathe, let them reconnect with you, find a little quiet corner where they can ground and really come back to themselves, clear their mind, clear their body, and you become kind of like their grounding cord, their way of getting back to the earth. So instead of looking like a giraffe with their head up like here, they become that nice, calm, relaxed horse once again. And that takes you to realize, oh, my horse is having fun, but there is too much of a good thing in that sense for the fire animal. For that shining star, they can get frantic. And so what we're thinking about always with the shining star, it's the fire element. We want to have a, a nice, fire in the fireplace that keeps the house glowing and warm. We don't want to burn the house down. And it's that keeping that fire in balance that keeps everything kind of lower drama, easier, clearer head, better learning, less distraction, and kind of gets us where we want to go for them as well as us. Stephanie said, when you first started talking about the wood, I said, that's spirit. And then the more you talked, the more I was like, and that's rocket. And it makes a lot of more sense with a lot of issues I'm having with them. So yeah, it's really exciting when you start to see these patterns. The Facebook user says it's sounding like Kobe. Oh, that's Simone's. And Stephanie says, oh, that is spirit to a T. So some of these animals are going to be really obvious, and some animals are going to be a real heavy blend. So you're going to really be pulling from different elements. Totally normal. So if you're not figuring it out immediately, don't worry about it. And we have kind of the most exciting one at the end. So you kind of have to wait till we get all the way around the circle. So stick with us here. All right. So what's your tips for success with our shining star? The big thing is you want to remember that this animal absolutely needs to have quiet time alone together. They do really well with touch. They do really well, like you learn acupressure or massage or touch or red light or aromatherapy, whatever it is that you do together, have it be quiet, have it be calming, have it be grounding. Give them that time out. And then everything kind of kicks into gear. These are animals that when the emotions are in a good place, a lot of the physical things are okay. But when their emotions are out of whack, you start to get the physical things. But the physical things aren't what's driving it. It really is being driven by emotional balance. So how do you work together? Make sure you're always taking time to ground and connect and be together. You have to pay attention. And don't work if that animal is frantic. They've kind of gone tilt. They just shut their brain down. You're not going to learn anything like that. It's better to just call a timeout if that animal is overwhelmed or overstimulated. Give them that chance to really settle in. Then they can take in new information. You're going to be a lot more successful and be a lot more efficient with your training. Some of the vulnerabilities that you'll see in the shining star will be that they are kind of emotionally driven conditions, like say stomach ulcers that come from stress. So we have a lot of horses that end up with these stomach ulcers because they're under emotional stress. So it's a physical aspect that needs to be addressed as a physical aspect. What's driving it is that emotional nature. And so you want to be able to address both the physical and that emotional component. You'll also see issues on the front leg tendons. That's because the points and the channels for the fire are all on the front leg. So you'll end up having kind of the energy kind of wacky in those areas. You may also see shoulder issues, and you may even see cardiovascular issues. Horses aren't quite as vulnerable to cardiovascular issues as, say, humans or even dogs, but they can get them for sure. And that can show up in the story of our fire animals. So how do you support their wellness? Again, manage that level of stimulation, focus on genuine connection, and really use touch for relaxation to just prevent all sorts of health issues from getting started in the first place. All right. So our next one, we're really
Oh, I think Susan's frozen again. I'm hoping that you guys can still hear me and I haven't frozen. Let's see if she pops back on. Just let me know in the comments, guys, if you can still hear me, just so that I know that we've still got some connection whilst we're waiting for Susan to come back. I don't know if you can even still hear me. Ah, brilliant. Okay. Hopefully Susan will be able to pop back on. One of the things that she's been using and relating to is these charts. Oh, I think she's completely gone. We can still hear your half. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hopefully she'll pop back on. Yeah, these charts. So Susan does sell them. They're on her website, and they're really, really valuable information. And they break down all the information that she was saying in terms of the correspondence and the systems, some of the vulnerabilities, the qualities. It's just a really handy visual. So if you're interested in this 5-element theory, I highly recommend them. And there's other charts as well that she does do. I smiled and laughed to myself a little bit throughout for the wood element. Lucy is she's highly wood, and she's also highly water when she's doing well. Ah, there we go. She's back. You completely disappeared. I've just been telling them how wonderful your charts are and where to find them if they want them.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. And I can't see you, but I'm sure they can see you. It's I'm hoping they can see you. So it might anyway. Okay. So as long as they can hear me, I guess I'll just go forward and just assume that that is fine. And I wanted to come in here first, but I now need to just go over and get my slides. I just want to make sure that you didn't think I was gone for good. Sometimes the internet here, even though we're in Seattle, like this is the home of Microsoft, right? And we still have issues. All right. Oh, there it is. Can you guys hear me? I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, you're there. Good. Okay. So at least it kind of cut in between elements. So there's something good to be said about that. All right, so here we are, back on the chart again. So we've gone wood and fire, but we're kind of turning the gate here. We're kind of turning the circle here because the earth element is really different. We've been dealing with two kind of natural extroverts, and we're now going to be kind of down dialing it a little bit. We're kind of coming back to center because the earth element is our good as gold animal, and they have a really different energy. They are the salt of the earth animal. They are kind, they're sturdy, they're reliable, they're easygoing, they're pretty good natured. They have a dark side. I mean, who doesn't? But they're basically just like a good guy. They are just really just solid, good doers. Now, these animals, instead of being motivated by movement and connection and doing and playing, they are motivated by comfort and ease and by food. Now, I understand that all of us are motivated by food, right? And food's great. I love food. Your dog loves food. Your horses love food. These animals are really motivated by food. And so unfortunately, they are also the ones that have that tendency to kind of look at that green pasture and gain weight. They are a animal that, again, is kind of motivated by comfort and by ease and hanging out, not having to work too hard. They would way rather be out in the pasture with really rich forage than, you know, in the arena doing those jumps. So very different type of animal and motivation than what we've been looking at so far. So their strengths are they are reliable, they are dependable, they're steady, they're really forgiving. They go a little bit slower and they're perfect for a beginner. So these are your school horses. They are your horses that instead of having to be, your beginner rider feeling kind of afraid to ride this animal because they might kind of take off on them or do hi ho silver. This horse doesn't want to do this. If anything, you're having to like, come on, you can come on, let's go. So it's a very different temperament and a very different set of needs and behavior. Um, and for the right person, this horse has earned their name as the good as gold because they are, oh my God, they are just really a little nugget of wonderfulness in the horse world. But they also have their challenges, as you can imagine. These horses tend to be stubborn. They can be really hard-headed. They can be slower to learn, and we're going to talk about that because I have a real kind of mission in the world to help people understand how the earth element animal learns. But they can become a mountain of unmovable refusal. So when this animal says no, they mean like Mount Everest level, like ain't moving nowhere. So it is something, they become a force of nature when that happens. But usually, as long as everything's going well, it's too much bother for them. They'd rather be easygoing. They'd rather not make all that fuss. And so most of the time they're pretty wonderful. And sometimes because they're so food motivated, we actually see that the only time that they get maybe aggressive or kind of worked up or frantic is at dinner time. So usually they're not really impatient for anything, but say you have 10 horses in your barn, and this is the time that this horse is like kicking against the door, like hurry up with dinner or feed me first. That would be the best idea for them. So they are really great as like a school pony or for a beginner or someone that just wants to like chill out and just have a nice lot of trail rides and just have a good time together. What they love to do is just quiet hanging out. What I love, for example, is if you watch Amanda, a lot of the time that she's spending with her horses is just hanging out. She's not, getting on their back and riding 200 kilometers. She's just being with them. And these earth animals love that. I'm not saying that her horse is earth. I'm just saying that the earth horse is really naturally just drawn to something that's just cozy and hangoutable. They really love that. They also really love touch. And so they just are usually super receptive to massage or any kind of healing touch you want to do. They usually just really love it. You may have to watch as you're doing training and whatever about using food as learning habits. So for example, if you're learning a new trick or a new something, you might want to use food just because that gets their attention, to be sure. But you might want to quickly transition off to other kinds of cues like clicker training or whatever works for you, because they can get really almost kind of greedy and hyper around food. And so just know that that's one thing you want to kind of keep on top of. How to work together, you just honor their warm up. They warm up slower, their brain warms up slower, their body warms up slower. You want to think of like a old style choo-choo train, like and once they get that speed going, they can go forever. They've got great endurance as long as you have, properly brought them up to fitness and everything. But they're not fast starters. And so that's just unreasonable to ask that of them. And if you accept that, you'll be much more successful with them. But the biggest thing that I want to convey with the earth element horse, and it's so important, is these animals are not stupid. I really want people to understand that. They don't learn fast necessarily, but they are really good learners. And the big thing that you have to understand is if you teach them in small bites of bites, right? So food metaphor, teach them in small bites, let them get that, praise them up, just make them feel like, oh, we just did so good today, and stop. They will take that and hold and lock that in. And the next time you come back, you can take the next small step. But if you take those baby steps and you add them together, you will avoid that level of overwhelm, that level of trying to process too many pieces of information, too many lessons. And instead of seeing them as slow learners or stupid, you'll see that they're just methodical and they build slowly, but very, very steadily. And in some ways, for example, the fire animal looks like they learn something really fast, but they can forget it in a second. So you may have to actually repeat it. And the earth horse tends to, once they've got it, like, man, they have got it. Steel trap, they have it. And so you can build on that slowly and just allow that to be slow because it will be steady. They're not afraid to learn. They're not afraid to work. They just don't push them. Don't expect them to learn like the wood animal who's bold and pushing. Don't expect them to learn like the fire who is just like, woo, like, oh, I got that. That's just not their temperament. And when you wrap your head around that, you'll be successful and they'll feel successful too. Pamela says, this is like my girl, and I find when she says no, it's for a reason. Yeah. So we tend to think of these horses because they process a little bit slower. We can think of them as like a little dull-witted or what. It's so not true. They are smart. They are sensitive. They are wise. They're incredible teachers. And most of us, let's be honest, most of us, we learned how to ride on the earth horses, and we owe them the honor and respect that they gave to have us with zero skill sitting on their back. We owe that in care, in response, and they will give you everything as long as you honor them by giving them everything too. And who doesn't want to? They're as good as gold. They're wonderful. They're wonderful. All right. Let's look at what the earth element looks at with the healthcare. These are animals that definitely do have their physical kind of vulnerabilities, and some of those might be digestive issues, weight issues, growths like warts, sarcomas, tumors, fluid imbalances like edema, swellings, as well as kind of low energy. They can get a little sluggish, they can get a little kind of heavy, bloated, all of those kinds of things. Yes, we are also looking at all kinds of colic and digestive issues, from diarrhea to constipation to, you name it. It all kind of fits into that earth element picture. So how do you support their wellness? Gentle movement. So these animals may prefer to like hang out and eat, but they need exercise. And so if you yourself have enjoyed sitting on the couch and watching Netflix instead of going out on a run, you get it, you understand. But at the same time, yes, you don't necessarily have to become an Olympic athlete, but you do have to go out and at least, walk that mile around the neighborhood or whatever. Keep these animals in shape. Don't let them turn into an apathetic blob. It's not good for their head. It's not good for their body. They do have vulnerabilities to things like laminitis and kind of metabolic disorders. You don't want them going there, but keep them in shape and keep them happy and healthy. And oh my God, they're just a treasure. They are a total treasure. All right. So we are now coming around that circle and coming to the bottom here of them, because that earth was the transition point on coming to kind of beneath the horizon. And down here, we're going to see two special types that are a little more introverted. So we're really coming to a different energy than what we saw from those first two. Now, the mental element is the perfect performer. They are talented, smart, and capable animals. These are horses that can do amazing things. They love to work. They love to have a job. They love to get something done. They are determined. They're clear. They're hardworking. They can be a little aloof or reserved. They're not as demonstrative, maybe, as some of these other types. They may have a certain kind of natural elegance about them, but you kind of look at them maybe as a cool customer. They're a little reserved, and they are motivated by purpose and duty and kind of getting something done. And this manifests in this package of this smart, talented, graceful creature that you almost can feel like they're kind of a little bit of royalty. Now, their strengths are that they're incredibly hardworking, and they will bring 100% of themselves to anything that you choose to do together. So it can be, you know, doing groundwork, or it can be becoming an Olympic horse. It doesn't matter what you're doing with them, but they like a challenge. They like a mental challenge as well as a physical challenge, but they like to do stuff with you. And they really like you to bring that 100% to the table as well. They also have this amazing ability to judge where you're at. They're much more patient with beginners who they can sense are maybe bringing 100%, but they don't have the skills yet. So they might be really good with kids, for example, who aren't skillful, but they're really dedicated. But they do want you to really, you know, if you've got those skills, they're going to want you to bring your A game. They'll do that. They'll kind of be like, I'm bringing my A game. Why aren't you? This is teamwork here. Their challenges are that they are sensitive. And so they're tough, and they are resilient, and they are hard workers. But when you bring kind of rough handling to these animals, now I can't imagine that any of you here would be handling your animals roughly, but you may have inherited problems associated with a horse who has had that rough handling and kind of have to go through a rehab period as they're realizing that, oh my God, there's a human who's safe. There's a human who is who's going to be more sensitive, who's going to look for those subtle cues instead of those big loud ones. They can actually kind of disappear internally. They are much less likely, like the wood horse is going to bite. They're going to kick. They're going to attack if they are under stress. Not the metal. The metal was much more likely to disappear inside. And so that metal kind of turns into a robot, like nobody home. They move stiffly. They just kind of disappear like nothing's there. And when you encounter a metal animal that's shut down like that, again, they're super tough. They will keep performing. They will keep doing their things, but there's no joy. There's no kind of glow about them. And so it's your job to bring that metal out of its shell. And what we see is that the metal animals, they don't make friends with everybody. They're not like connected to all the members of the herd. They are instead going to find their special one or their special two, whether that's a human or another animal, and have those bonds that someone has to earn access to that animal's trust, to that animal's kind of inner life. But when they get that, they will give everything to that person or animal. And it's quite an honor. Like you really feel like, oh my God, they trust me and they're like opening to me. Like, oh, this is really something really sacred. It is sacred. It is something very, very special. And so how do you connect to these animals? Again, they're sensitive. You're not going to do, like, oh my God, no. The fire might like that. They might get off on all that playfulness. These are animals who are going to really prefer silence, stillness, presence. They may be fine with acupressure, or they may just want you to only work on an energetic level. These are not the horses that want to be the center of it all. These are the ones that are going to stand off on their own and just kind of do their own thing. And that's how they're happiest. That's how they feel safe and like, I'm going to sit here and kind of mull over the world and like they're solving great problems or something. Honor their extraordinary work ethic and just realize that they, again, can bring an incredible amount of performance and duty to what they do. They will, train with you. They will ride with you. They will go with you. But in return, they expect you to be observant enough and in tune enough to notice when they hurt, when they're not right, when they're over, like, oh, the introvert needs to go home now, that kind of feeling that we talk about. This is absolutely true for them. Think of them as an introvert and, going to the party and like wanting to go home as soon as possible. That is your metal element, and that's fine. But they have a job to do. Like if you take them to a competition or something like that, then they're fine because, they have that job to do and they'll do that. But then they need downtime. Any introvert that goes out and makes that foray into the outside world, they need that opportunity to get quiet and calm and kind of get back to center, kind of clear out. And so those are some of the tips with how to work with them. Now let's look at some of their healthcare issues. They definitely have them. And what I would say is that their vulnerabilities tend to be in some pretty important structures in the body, including the skin, the immune system, and the respiratory system. And so these are animals, again, that when they're showing stress, they're often going to disappear internally. So you're not going to see behavior, kind of outside behavior to tell you that they're not doing well, but you may start to see them have skin problems or immune problems or respiratory problems because internally they're having that response, but externally they just have these physical symptoms that are kind of raising the flag saying, help, I need some help. And so make sure you're avoiding that overwork. Make sure you're paying attention. You're being sensitive to their incredible hard work and not asking them to be too social or to be more than is reasonable to be. It's probably Simone who says this explains why my older gelding and I gel as well as we do. Yeah, it's a special connection, right? You feel like, this is my special, this is we have a quiet little something over there, and it's nice. Stephanie says it sounds a lot like espresso. So I don't know espresso, but I'm just hoping that you're getting that insight that you can bring to that relationship. All right. Now we are rounding the corner here for our fifth of the fifth types. And this is where it starts to get really juicy, everybody. We're coming around to this water element here. Now, Amanda is smiling, and it's funny because when I didn't know Amanda and I didn't know her horse, and she told me a couple quick things about her horse, I was like, oh, that horse is a water horse. And so I'm going to tell you all about the water horse because Lucy, if you guys follow Lucy, she is taking Amanda on a water horse journey, start to finish. That's what it's about, because these animals are different. They are the magical outlier. They are the animal of a lifetime. They are the ones that are the healers and the change makers. And if you think that life is going to be the same after you start being with this animal, yeah, good luck with that. You can see Amanda's laughing because that's how it is. These are unusual, complicated, spiritual, wise, everything kind of animals. They are the once in a lifetime creatures that change everything. They are motivated by a higher mission. They tend to have a healing mission in the world. And so this is not going to be your everyday horse. They come in, it seems, with a greater purpose, and they are taking you along for the ride, sometimes whether you like it or not. They manifest as a kind of almost a mystical or surprising or special being, and they kind of go beyond being just an animal. And, I mean, no animal is just an animal to us. We love them all. But there is something special about this creature. Now, the water element has strengths and weaknesses. And I do not want to make light of this. And I don't want to say that, oh, the water element is so exciting that everybody should have one. No, because they are a handful. There's never a dull moment with them. They are extraordinary in the experience. You'll have these connections, you'll have these experiences, you may even have spiritual experiences, dreams, unexpected transformation in your life where your life just goes from before to after. But at the same time, there is never a dull moment because there's usually a lot going on. You need to start to expect the unexpected, and it can take you on some places that are not very comfortable because these animals are change agents. They embrace transformation and they ask you to do the same. They may, for example, have a history of life-threatening incidents, whether it's an injury or some sort of, condition that, they had to get some kind of surgery or who knows what. They tend to have big drama events at some point in their story. Now, I've been talking very much about these animals and these constitutions, these types that your animal kind of has from day one, actually. And again, they have all 5 types in them. But the water is interesting because some animals come in as a water animal, but we also see that animals who go through traumas, they go through mishandling. This might be the rescue dog you get at the shelter or the horse you take from the kill pen. These are animals that have been through something that wasn't working and has transformed them in ways. Some people would call them broken. Other people would call them project horses. Other people would say they're change agents. And so these water animals, again, can be like this from the beginning, and they always like this, or they can be an animal that started life in one of the other as their primary element, but life changed them. So it's kind of the nature or nurture version of the 5 elements. They can come in with this, or they can kind of become this. But when they get into that state, nothing is ever the same for them. And so how do you connect with them? Not in your usual ways. They're not like your normal horse. They're not like your normal person or dog or cat. You may connect to them in dreams. You may be around them and actually even feel like you're in an altered state. Just being with them can be incredibly powerful and transformative. How do you work together? Expect the unexpected, but you better ditch all of your big plans. And that's very much Amanda's picture. Like she said, oh, I'm going to get this horse and we have these plans and I'm going to ride and we're going to do all these things. Not with a water animal. It just doesn't work that way. And she ends up with a horse that she doesn't ride, but she's having an incredible transformative experience with it. And this is exactly what water does. I'm not saying that you can't ride a water horse. That's nonsense. In fact, sometimes you have the water horses who are the elite performers. They are the ones that nobody can do anything with until they find that one person and they hit the Olympic level. I mean, they really can be like absolutely kind of broken in the sense of all sorts of conditions and things that you're dealing with, all the way to the absolute elite levels because they're special on one end of the spectrum. But if you go into this expecting that I am going to do XYZ with my horse, maybe not. You might just have to go with the flow here with the water element. So if you honor that and you kind of release yourself into that flow, it can be amazing where you go. Now, they have a lot of weird healthcare issues. They are incredibly vulnerable to emotional disturbance, and they can get, they're very sensitive. And if they feel a disturbance in the force in their environment, they're going to let you know that things aren't right. They can feel the environment, they can feel the people, they can feel the the climate, they can feel everything. They just feel stuff. And so just they're not making it up. Even if all the other horses aren't picking it up, they're picking something up. So they're probably just ahead of the game. They also may have skeletal issues. It's anything to do with bones as well as aging issues. And they may also have reproductive or urinary issues. One of the other places where we often see these horses struggle is with lower back pain. So that's kind of the lumbar, kind of back behind where the saddle sits. They often will, if they have back pain anywhere, it tends to be the lower back. So I could go on and on and on about these animals. They are game changers. And when I go to work with someone that has a water horse and they finally feel like I understand their crazy, outrageous story, a lot of them burst into tears because they feel like, oh my God, somebody doesn't think I'm crazy. They actually believe me. Yes, that is true about the water. And there's so much more we can say. But as you can see, we've been at this a while, so I want to kind of keep it moving, but just understand that the way to support their wellness is to expect the unexpected, dive into the flow, and just honor that emotional, spiritual, it's really a destiny that you have together, which is powerful and beautiful and just incredible in its nature. The thing that I want to encourage you is if that speaks to you and you want to know more about that, come into our group because we understand the water element. And we are there to help you kind of navigate your way through, because it really does take some understanding to see how these animals work, how to make this work, because there can be some real frustrations and some real tearing your hair out moments, but it's also can be one, like your dream horse. This really can be the animal that changes everything for you. So just some pretty amazing stories in that picture. I wonder if anybody here who is you guys are still with me here at an hour and a half, which is just, I'm so grateful. But I'm just wondering if any of you say, yes, that is definitely my story. A lot of times, for example, when we have these water horses, there's a really cool story about how you hook up. So like you went to the farm following an ad on the 3-year-old that was perfectly ready for whatever, but you fell in love with that horse that was 25 and had navicular and can't be ridden, but that's your horse. Like these stories are amazing what we do here. So they're really fun. But they're surprising and not everybody understands them. But I think you're in the right place with Amanda. She'll understand you just fine because it's a wonderful world working with these different types. So just to finish up, just want to let you guys know that that is a first kind of run through. And I know I talk fast and I've kind of dumped all this stuff in your lap because, oh my God, it's just the first piece of it. But it's something that I hope that you can kind of just start to kind of put on the 5-element glasses and think of your animals and think of them in this new way. And just know that there's so much more out there if that's something that's interesting to you. And so just want to thank Amanda for letting us share that with you, because it's just so fun, so fun.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. And I'm so glad that you guys have stuck around, even a little bit of technical difficulties, but yeah, and the water element horse, yeah, many stories about Lucy, many stories, but I do find she's a very strong wood as well.
Yes.
And when, excuse my language, shit hits the fan, she does revert back to very strong wood. So those two to balance are interesting elements, difficult elements. But I wouldn't change a thing about her at all, ever.
Exactly. It's what we see is that most of the water animals have what we call a mask. And so this is kind of, you have that water at the core that's kind of driving all of this, but they tend to wear a mask of one of the other elements. But that may change. But for example, Lucy's is definitely wood. So she's going to set boundaries, and she's going to have a cranky temper, and ba, 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 ba. And that allows you to work with both the water and the wood in order to bring better balance. And yeah, that can get a little complicated, but it doesn't have to be. When you realize that all of these elements are living inside, you can deal with whichever one you want to support at any moment. It's all good. It's all good. So Simone's, I'm assuming that is Simone, said, "Oh yes, both the mares in my life have made their presence a solid and life-changing adventure." Yeah. And they will take you, they're not your average animal. Like, they don't take you into the everyday general public kind of horse experience. They take you somewhere else, and that's really kind of scary sometimes for some people, but it is it's also really, really exciting. So someone says, "Thank you both. Highly recommend the Elemental Acupressure's Elemental Matrix classes. They are magical." I don't know who you are, but thank you so much for saying that. Yes, we definitely have a good time in our classes. And yeah, so for example, I did want to let you know that we do have a real kind of entry-level 5-element course in our website. So that's elementalacupressure.com. And in our shop, if you go to the Start Here part of the shop, you'll see it's a course called Thrive in 5. It's just $15 US. It's similar to what we did here today, but there's additional PDFs that show you acupressure points you can do, how to do the acupressure, and super simple 5-minute sessions. And it would make that kind of bridge from just hearing all this information kind of come over you to having something you can actually practically do to help your animal with that. So just know that Thrive in 5 class is there. We also have classes everywhere from kind of the starting acupressure basics all the way up to doing kind of the whole training program, like what Amanda is doing for certification. Oh, it's Brittany. Hi, Brittany. Brittany is actually here in Washington State with us. So she's actually just over the water there. She's taking all sorts of classes with us. So it's just so nice to know that you have this reach, Amanda. It's so fun, so fun. But yeah, and if you have any questions or you want to put in things, I'm not in any rush to get out of here. So, I'm happy to stay here if Amanda wants to keep this going. Or you can also just come into our free group. So the Guild is our free, it's not on Facebook, it's in a Mighty network. So it's, ad free and all of that. And we have a whole just community based around what we call the Acu Sisters, although men are absolutely invited to kind of hang out, ask questions, and learn and do all of this together. So just know that we've got lots of both free resources as well as paid resources that can help you implement all this stuff. Because, it's great to hear about it, but you got to implement so you can really get the benefits coming your way.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I think personally, the classes are amazing. I do try most weeks to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning so that I can join in. I'm not sure if I've got a bit of FOMO going on.
Amanda's coming at 3 o'clock in the morning, gals. 3 o'clock in the morning, and she stays with us for 2 hours for our meetings. It's incredible. It's incredible that she does that. And no, we are actually going to be putting on some special meetings for our folks that are in that other part of the time zone so that we don't have to ask her to always come at 3 a.m., which is not fair. It's totally not fair. Stephanie says, "Brittany is awesome. She worked on my ponies before. She's near me." Oh, that is so good. So waving to you across the sound there here in Washington State. Yes, and someone's saying that is dedication. That is total dedication. Like, she gets serious gold stars for that, doesn't she? Everybody goes, how can you do that?
I think it's more a reflection of your teaching and how much I want to be there and be part of it rather than me. I think it's more, I haven't done it before. I haven't done it for anybody else.
I can get rather animated. So if anybody is going to keep you up at 3 a.m., it'll be me and getting excited. But anyway. All right. So I'm not seeing any further questions. But again, as this all kind of trickles through, just know that I'm totally open for here. Maybe I'll write. Can I write a comment? I don't know that I can write a comment.
Yeah, I've tried to write some comments as we've gone along. It won't let me write anything.
Yeah, don't worry. But you see the name Elemental Acupressure there. Notice that if you're not familiar with the spelling of acupressure, it's only one C. A lot of people try to spell it with CCU, but Elemental Acupressure only has one C. Elemental Acupressure, you can find us on Facebook. We have a ton of free content on Facebook and Instagram. And I would say more on Facebook than on Instagram, but you know, whatever. And you can always just message me through Facebook or come join our group. And, you know, I know you're already in this group, which is pretty nifty, but lots more when you reach out. So Pamela said, thank you both. Have found it interesting, and it gives me something else to delve into, better support my girl. That's all this is about. This is about like total support your animals. And when you better understand what their needs are, that's where I feel that the 5 elements can really give us insight. So you're welcome. Welcome. So thank you so much, Amanda. This has been a ball.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, like Susan said, if you've got any questions at any time, and even if it's down the track and you suddenly think, oh, I can't remember the name or anything like that, post a question in my group. We can ask Susan that way. It's not a problem. Yeah, so don't hide in silence.
Don't be shy. Well, I mean, if you want to be shy, you can be shy, but you don't have to be.
All right, yeah. So I think the comments have probably stopped. So I think I might end it there. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. And thank you, Susan, for your time, as always. I cannot believe it's been over a year and a half since we last had you in as a guest speaker. That's just, God knows where last year went.
The past 2 years, let's face it, they're like no other.
Right them off. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. All right then, guys. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Bye-bye.